Hello, everybody. This is Fork Poppy. I'm joined by Pizza Moth 50.
Yo, yo.
We're going to be looking at another Value Vintage MTGO weekly event. This one was 4 rounds. We've started doing scaling rounds, so based on our 16 entries, we were able to do 4 rounds. We ended up both going 2 and 2, but unfortunately each with a bye because we had some drops. So really just 1 and 2. I'm not the happiest with it, but I was playing a bit of a brew that wasn't. Let's just start by taking a look at my list. We're going to do this all off the Shardless Agents blog. Again, that'll be linked in the description. So this is built around your Energy Core, your Amped Raptor, Galvanic Discharge, 2 in the narrative. You've got Satya as top end, and I managed to fit in the budget for 3 Guidacils as pretty much your ideal turn 1 play. Beyond that, Static Prison's removal. A couple things I was a little suspicious of, the Inti and the Assaultron Dominator, just due to having a little bit weaker threats in the 2-drop slot. I think they were alright role players, but I think there's a lot of room to play with what the threat package was here.
Yeah, I'm still not sold on the white plumes in this deck either. Like, obviously, white plumes are a good threat, don't get me wrong, but I think there's potentially a world where you could use the budget from it
Absolutely.
better.
This is the second most expensive card in the deck after the Guide of Souls, so cutting 2 of those would leave a little bit of room. The matches I ended up losing were 2 creature decks, so I do think it might have been nice to have access to potentially either some Fury or Pyrogoyf in this deck.
Yeah, I think there's a world where you potentially try to squeeze the fourth Guide of Souls, and then, like you said, play Pyroglyphs or Furies instead of the white plumes.
Yeah, that might make things go a little bit smoother. It is really impressive to hit an initiative threat off of a Satya, be able to double that ETB, but you could say the same about Fury or Pyro, so overall,
Right.
I think the deck was alright. I would certainly make some swaps, but it was fun to play like a somewhat fair mid-rangey style deck.
Yeah, this was kind of a brew I saw from Modern, and I don't know. I've made some changes since, some stuff that I didn't really get to test the list as much as I would like to have going into the event, but it performed decently well. I didn't feel like I totally got blown out every round or anything crazy like that.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
essentially, you're just trying to use stuff like Serum Powder and Devourer of Destinies and Spoils of the Vault to exile a mass number of cards to make your Cosmogoyfs extra big, and then you're trying to turbo them out via your Chancellor of the Tangles, your Spirit Guides, your Breakout to either just attack them for lethal or use Thud to fling it.
Yeah, I think this is a really cool deck. Definitely a unique combo. I have seen a couple of games where it can pretty easily turn 1, turn 2, have a massive threat in play, and then 3 different ways to convert that almost instantaneously off of one attack phase or not even having to attack with it. It's a pretty cool shell. It definitely can be a little fragile, and I see that's what you teched against with your sideboard. You got your counterspell hate, discard hate, and then removal counterspell hate.
Yeah, because the deck really only has 4 threats, you really have to either protect those threats or just be careful of when you're actually committing them to the board.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's why you see the 8 protection spells and then the 4 protection spells that protect you against the hand attack, the ley lines.
Yeah.
And then yeah, there's a couple penny cards because we had space and didn't know what else to put in. But
Yeah, and then we'll get into our 3-in-1 decks. We're going to start with Noah here. Izzet See the Truth? Obviously, our titular card here is See the Truth. It's an Anticipate, but if it's cast from exile or anywhere other than your hand, you get to Ancestral Recall. Got a few ways of doing that with Founding the Third Path. Really cool build around card. I used to play it a bit in Modern. Dreadhorde Arcanist can do it from the yard if you get a bit of a buff to the power, like through Heroes Hangout. And then Amped Raptor, cast it for free off the top of the deck. Then it's sort of a Delver style deck, a little bit of removal, a lot of card advantage, and the rest of the threat package is filled out by our equipment, your Planisphere and your Quarry Steel Cutter, as relatively resilient ways to put that pressure onto the board. What did you think of this, Brew Pizza?
I think it was pretty sweet. There's definitely some interesting. I don't want to say tech, but tech going into the deck. Like I think it's a really cool shell to try around with.
Absolutely.
The Planisphere I think is a busted card, and I'm surprised more people don't play it or are trying to play it.
Yeah, I
Um,
underrated it until I played against it in this deck for sure.
yeah, but then otherwise, I think there's a couple questionable choices for me personally. Like I'm surprised to not see a Brainstorm or a T Cruise,
Absolutely,
but
yeah.
to see like a single Consider seems a little off to me
Yeah,
personally. But
consider strong, but I would love to see Brainstorm, especially with the Amped Raptor. I know there is a lack of fetches, but that Treasure Cruise, Dig Through Time. One other idea we kicked around was, there's a lot of ways to free cast cards here, and I've tried to do a lot of brewing with stuff like Electro Dominance and As Foretold. I don't think it would be unreasonable for this deck to potentially resolve a couple copies of Crashing Footfalls. And then, yeah, the rest of this is relatively what you'd expect. You got your Sailor's Bane for your games where you need that resilient big threat, and then just some of your standard pieces of interaction. Mana base is solid. The Izzet lands, a lot of them are very expensive, so this went heavy on basics to make sure your Snarl and your Silver Falls are always untapped. Then we've got Avocado. on a mono black control Necrodominance shell. Avocado here went 3 and 1. We also had Heidel, who's a team member for Value Vintage and admin, doing a similar brew, who also went 2 and 2 with the list. So this is built around, obviously, Necrodominance, sort of a fixed modern version of the card Necropotence, where you can skip your draw step and then put cards into your hand based on the amount of life you choose to pay. With that, you've got a few ways to gain life and remove your opponent's threats through March and Consuming Corruption. These are definitely staples of the Necrodom lists, your classic black hand attack suite, as well as one copy of Dreams and Steel and Oil. And then the really interesting threats in top end. One Gray Merchant of Asphodel, two Sorin the Mirthless, and an Ashiok Wicked Manipulator. Now, I've seen neither of these planeswalkers in any constructed decks, I don't believe.
Yeah, I haven't seen Swordless for a long time. And I've seen a couple of people talking about this Ashiok, where
Yeah,
it does a weird thing with Necrodominance with that whole first line of text that it has with paying life.
similarly, Unholy Annex card, I'm pretty excited to be coming into the format. It's about 140 right now. I would like to see it go a little lower, but it's a really strong, fun, fair card, and this is exactly the kind of shell that can make use of it.
Yeah, the only one thing that had stood out to me was no Dark Rituals here.
Yeah,
The Sorens seem mediocre. Maybe there's something we're missing, but I would much rather see those as Dark Rituals to
yeah,
power out the the Necrodominance or the Unholy Annex or something along that line.
yeah. I mean, Dark Ritual is just such a ridiculously strong card, and I know it's priced out of a lot of decks in this format, but you can make some sacrifices to make it work, and this is, I think, a kind of shell that can easily make really great use of it.
Yep.
Yep. Then in fourth place, we got friend of ours, friend of the channel, Scrambled Dude on Fluctuator, and you may be familiar with this list. They do bring it nearly every week. There's also a really good primer on the deck that I can link in the description, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, but it is built around the card Fluctuator. Gives everything with cycling, basically cycles for free if it has two or less, and then almost every card in the deck cycles, with the exception of the Fluctuators themselves and one land that is a lair that can let you hit your land drop, make 1 mana, and bounce one of these cycling lands back into your hand to continue the loop. And it's going to close by either a Draenith Stinger, which you can get back with Jolted Awake, that also has cycling, or just by resolving a Mako or a Fox and making it disproportionately huge by repeatedly cycling cards.
Yeah, the deck is very fast and very resilient. You very much have to eat the Fluctuator with hand attack or something along that line. Otherwise, they are just going to combo off. If you are trying to remove it once it's in play, they just cycle to the hit the Jolted Awake and then just let the removal happen and then
Mm-hmm.
just Jolted Awake, bring it back,
Exactly.
continue where they were.
Or if they happen to see their next Fluctuator beforehand.
Right.
Like once you give it an inch, it will definitely take a mile. This is a deck that you definitely have to respect.
Yep.
Then in third place, 99 land OTK on Nadu Breakfast. I think clearly probably a top 5 deck in the format. Our core card here is going to be Nomads and Core, a free, repeatable, instant speed way to target a creature you control, obviously broken with Nadu, which we've seen throughout many formats. I used to play Nadu as my main deck in CDH, as well as your Cephalid Illusionist, where whenever you target this with your Nomad or your Shuko ability, you get to mill your top 3 cards. You do that until you have no deck left. Cast a Dread Return from the graveyard. And there's a really fun pile here. What you target with this is your Angel of Glory's Rise. That's going to give you a couple of pieces of protection through a Peacekeeper, Meddling Mage, and then Laboratory Maniac is how you actually close the game. You will get a Professor Hojo back that lets you, again, make use of your Nomad's abilities, your Shuko, by drawing one additional card every turn. It's, maybe a way to make those cards less dead when you don't have a combo piece, but it also is a way to draw the card for your Laboratory Maniac after you resolve your Dread Return pile. But it can also just play the fair game with Nadu, with a couple of good interactive 2 and 3 drop creatures. I mean, this is just a really scary deck because you never know what angle it's going to be going for. One choice I wanted to touch on really interesting is your Summoning Trap. I've seen this a little bit more in your creature combo and even a couple of creature mid-range decks as an answer to counterspells rather than trying to make your creature uncounterable. You say, okay, you can hit that piece, But now I'm going to punish you. I'm going to get to look 7 deep, grab the best one, maybe go positive on mana. Maybe that's what I really wanted to resolve the whole time.
I definitely think a lot of the green-based initiative decks should try to pick up this card.
Yeah, even if it's not a combo piece, if it is just 4 mana initiative threat, like when it's not seen coming, when you don't get the chance to interact with that on the stack, that can
Yep.
change the tide of the game pretty quickly. Second place, Toad Brews. Deck is labeled Mono White Prison, but it is actually built around Summon Yojimbo. That's the titular card. So this brew is really interesting. Toad also has a video on this list, so I'll be linking that as well. But they built this basically like a bit of a prison controlling mono white deck with a good amount of interaction. 4 disruptor flutes. I know the price on this card fluctuates a lot, and sometimes it's considered a little bit too outpriced for the format. But 4 of these main deck.
The mana base too here is very tech free, like utility stuff because it's mono white. Like you get
Yeah,
to play 3
absolutely.
Dust Bowls, 3 Remote Farms,
Yeah,
Nesting Grounds, which allows you to loop your Jimbo essentially and keep it doing things and never sacrificing itself.
yeah, that is a hilarious little tech that reprint MH3 seemed to drop the price on it quite a lot. And yeah, I mean, this is a really impressive threat. It does something different and strong every turn that it's in play. Only downside is that you only keep it for 4 turns, therefore 3 attacks. But the nesting grounds is a great way to sort of break that parity on that.
This is the pinnacle of brewing in this format. You get to play a lot of these niche cards and get to abuse them very
Yeah,
in ways you wouldn't
absolutely.
think about.
And then going into our first place deck is Omali Cat playing Golgari Initiative. And there's a lot of good mid range initiative decks running around right now. You'll see variations. Definitely Golgari is a strong one, but there's definitely Orzhov, Selesnya, Naya as well, because they all have different ways to play that early game, ways to interact and ensure that you have time to resolve your 4 mana initiative threats. So the strength of Golgari here, obviously, you get to play hand attack, Inquisition him to survive your early game. Now Ignoble Hierarch is dropped to about 70 cents. That's a good bit of acceleration. You got Caustic Bronco and the Mosswood Dread Knight as some repeatable card advantage. Grist is interaction. I mean, this deck looks pretty ready for anything.
I played against the second one of the rounds, and it's very good. It plays on a lot of angles very well, obviously with the hand attack and the abrupt decays for the control matchup, and even just like I got a couple times by Grist being able to sack the Dread Knight just to be able to play the Dread Knight again, essentially by doing the adventure and then into the
Yeah.
Dread Knight. Yeah,
If you can just get to the stage of the game where you're in control and you have the ability to do that, I mean, I don't know how a lot of decks can overcome it. Post hate here, you got Break the Ices in the sideboard. Some really interesting choices.
the Turoks and the Pithing Needles I think were the big ones that stood out as more narrow.
Yeah,
I would say almost.
you definitely don't see them too often.
Yeah, the Turoks, my guess at least would be for the white-based initiative decks or the white-based death and taxes like mono white humans and stuff along that line, where you just get the protected threat and that also serves as more hand attack.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely just as efficient and strong a threat as an initiative creature in a lot of board states. 4 mana, 4/3 that him to Durox is still really strong. All right, so now it's going to be time to get into our gameplay. Going into my round one, I was playing against Dev, obviously known quantity, one of the better players in the format. Almost always plays Temur Rhinos, and that was what he was on today. This was a pretty close match. Rhinos is definitely one of the decks to beat. You need to be ready for it. And I am packing a lot of interaction. I mean, we saw that was a Spirit Guide hand into turn 2 Footfalls, and I had to spend my turn 2 dedicating 1 removal spell to each Rhino. And obviously, I feel a little behind doing that, but in a way, that does mean that I'm more prepared for this matchup than a lot of other decks. Where a fast that start, there's not much you can do about it besides have enough removal spells for each threat.
Yeah, you have to either have the removal for them or have the board wipe, which is just more removal for them.
Absolutely,
Otherwise,
yeah.
there's almost no world where you can outrace the Rhinos on two like that.
No, definitely not. And I mean, my deck does play a lot of similar threats. It has these initiative threats. It has a little incidental life gain, but 2/4/4s on turn 2. I mean, yeah, there's not much to be done about it. And yeah, it is. The initiative mirrors are definitely always super interesting. We see, he had to go for a Caves of Chaos, and then the next turn an Undermountain, and I'm gonna try to race that. So here's a pretty decent showing for the Assaultron. I'm able to just buff itself here, give it the +1/+1 counter. So it seems silly to block with the Undermountain, giving me the initiative. that lets me grab a basic, keep a little bit of information hidden from my opinion, and get a second initiative trigger same turn. That's why I sequenced like this. And this was where it actually felt good. Like I felt like I was ready for this matchup once I was able to survive to this stage of the game.
Yeah, that's the big thing against Rhinos is as long as you can stabilize when they cast that Rhinos on turn 2 or turn 3, past that you have a much better chance of being able to fight that fair mid-range initiative monarch whatever style of gameplay that they're on.
Yeah, exactly. And my opponent slammed a Minskin Boo here. One of the best threats the deck has access to. It would normally look a little scary, but the fact that they swung with their hamster, I'm going to get to take the initiative back when I swing. I already have lethal on board here. I decided to play out the extra Soltron just in case there is some kind of gotcha, but obviously being a Cascade deck that passed the turn, there's not a ton you can do in this situation. So it was a close one, but I do end up being able to take game one off of Rhinos, which is what had me feeling a little more confident in the deck. I do put in Echoing Truth, as we discussed, good for hitting 2 Rhinos, and Test of Talents for the Cascade spell. But honestly, looking back, I'm a little bit skeptical of how I sideboarded. I mean, this is a great hand, right? I do feel like I'm generally ready for the matchup coming off a win, but I kind of underrated how the counterspells don't generally fit into how I sequence my turns. Like I want to be going threat into removal spell into threat. And having to hold up mana for the counterspells is sometimes a little bit easy to telegraph. They're also really bad hits off of Amped Raptor. Now here, yeah, I get fired on my Guide of Souls, which is unfortunate, but better than 2 Rhinos, frankly. And yeah, Fury and Rhinos is so disgusting. That was a hard cast one too. Dedicate 2 Spirit
Yeah,
Guides.
I remember spectating you in this game, and you're like, "Why did this Fury stick around?" And then you realized, oh, they double Spirit guided into
Yeah,
hard cast Fury on turn
yeah.
3.
I saw a card hit the exile. I assumed it was pitch cast, but no. Now I have a a 3/3 double striker I need to deal with. Luckily, as I had been discussing, my deck packs a lot of removal. This Galvanic Discharge lines up pretty good into the Fury, and the Minskin Boo is most notably what comes to mind. Yeah, there you see I hit a Test of Talents, not when I need it, but off my NT trigger, so it's basically just dead. And I think with that
Yes,
in mind, I should have just stayed focused on my heavy removal package.
I think in this matchup specifically, I would, as much as the test of talent seems good, I would much rather see the spell pierces. I feel like you're much more likely to hold up the 1 mana for a galvanic or a spell pierce than you are to hold up 2 mana for test of talents. I think.
Yeah, that's definitely true. The sideboard was what I felt least confident with in the deck in building, and I think that did turn out to punish me a little bit. But there's all like the game still looks not too far away. I do
No.
have the ability to take care of these Rhinos, and my opponent is on no cards in hand. At this stage, obviously they have Rhinos coming down, but I've got repeatable card advantage from the NT. Even that one dead draw, this game looks a lot closer. I technically even look a little bit ahead. But we're gonna see that that definitely doesn't last forever.
Yeah. Unfortunately, sometimes they just have it, and
Yeah, no,
there's
it's
not.
I have heard it called God's favorite deck, not for nothing.
Yes, we have a couple local buddies that love to call Rhinos God's favorite deck because between everything that the deck can do, it just loves to just top deck like nobody's business
Yeah,
sometimes.
I mean I'm looking good here. I'm feeling good. Got him down to no cards. What's his draw for turn? Instant speed Rhinos, and there's
Yeah.
basically nothing I can do about it. Obviously, going dead counterspell off the NT into land. That sucks to begin with, but then having to bear down another 10 power. And I'm not technically dead there, right? I mean, I'm seeing draws that could potentially stabilize me, but I'm gonna have to get pretty lucky.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised while watching this match that he didn't swing in with the
Yeah, I mean, what if I get a
Shardless
Wumpa?
Agent. Oh, does this? Oh,
I
it
mean,
does. Okay.
yeah,
I must have miscounted my math there on that last one, but I think he's, I don't want to say better, but maybe not. But
and yeah, we
yeah,
saw it
that
again.
was
Test of
again
talents
an
off the
unfortunate
Raptor.
flip off the Raptor, but
Yeah, that is partially luck. I decide, yeah, okay. I hated seeing those counter spells. Let's take them back out. I'm on the play. Maybe I can resolve a quick spellbinder to eat a threat. And I mean, the reason I sided them out in the first place was they could drop their threats quicker than I can play a 3-drop, and they can continue to survive games where they're empty-handed. So it doesn't seem great, but it's also a flyer that's good at taking the initiative back. There are worse things. I think that's fine to put back in on the play.
I was honestly surprised you bottomed the Spellbinder there. I think if I was piloting, I would have potentially bottomed that cantrip,
I
seeing
think
that I
that might
only
be
had
right.
one threat in my hand.
Yeah, I was
It could be
hoping to hit
hard pressed
something
to
a little
remove
bit
it.
more efficient off the tune was my theory, but the odds of that are a little slimmer. We did see Dev miss a land drop there, and that also had me feeling a little bit more confident. I decided to buy Jeggy there rather than potentially bluff a counterspell, and then we see, yep, double Spirit Guide into Footfalls. And as we discussed, I do have two answers in hand. I'm ready for one Footfalls, but what do I do after that? It gets a lot more suspicious.
Yeah.
I do think NT performed great in this set, though. I mean, flipping the test was
Yeah,
bad, but
yeah, I definitely don't think Inti is bad, obviously. To call that card bad would be stupid, but I'm just not sure if it's the best thing your deck can be doing. I feel like there is potentially something else
yeah,
that
definitely could be some options.
maybe I don't want to say more synergistic, but is more synergistic, I guess. But I'm not sure. It's hard to say because Inti is such just a house of a card at providing selection and pushing damage and
Yeah,
everything.
it's very resilient. It is also close to $1 though. That was a decent chunk of my budget, and that is something that can be cut to free up some budget for some other things. And yeah, he received Anger of the Gods just to remove the Inti into Fury, the damage that finishes off the Guide of Souls. Now, luckily, this was a pitchcast Fury. But we're back into a low resource game. I've got nothing in play. My opponent has got one Rhino that I do have an answer to. And then we see another one. One thing I love about going into these decks like Rhinos, Static Prison is among the best threats there can possibly be. Obviously, it's unfortunate being sorcery speed, but putting me up 2 energy and not having to spend any of it to keep the threat gone feels good.
Yeah, the fact that Discharge is just a scaling lightning bolt is so incredibly strong, especially when, like you said, you can just play the prison, and even if it just time walks a card and keeps it out of play for a turn, just to bank the energy sometimes is
Yeah.
what can make all the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, here we see again Test looking a little bit weaker. I think that was certainly a mistake in boarding on my end. Opponent gets to get the initiative down, and here, that was my theory behind the Spellbinders. They got no cards in hand. Spellbinder doesn't do much on that axis, but eventually it can take the initiative away. Maybe stabilize it
Yeah,
a
I
little.
definitely think yeah, you have to do something to try to get the initiative from them here.
Yeah,
It is unfortunate. You lose out on the ETB from the Spellbinder, but
yeah. And I mean, at this
you
point,
have to do something to pressure back.
I'm really fighting through. There's not a lot that I can do. I'm dead to the trap trigger. Luckily, I do funnily find a way to take the initiative myself, but bouncing under mountain won't really help me because when they recast, again, that's going to put them in the trap.
Yeah.
So I play it out just to see what my outs could possibly be. I figure Amped Raptor must be an above average one because it can be a chump blocker and potentially buy me some other kind of action. And we flip into a Caves of Chaos that I'm 1 energy short for.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure I loved the Raptor play there. Like, I think the thought also was you have to be able to hold up something for the Rhinos,
Yeah.
that's coming down. But I think I maybe would have liked to see the Gigantha there, but
Yeah, I think there could certainly be an argument for that.
it didn't necessarily matter because they were able to hit the
Yeah.
Coca anyways.
Yeah, I was fighting from behind there no matter what. So it was a bit of a close match. Obviously, Rhinos is a great deck. It was a great pilot. Man, I don't mind losing a close set like that. Match two, I got to play against our buddy Sam, who, as we said, did not bring post. Ended up playing a black-white Pox kind of tokens list, which started off a little bit slower. It had a hymn. It did eat what my plan was, one of the Assaultrons and a land drop. But my start was just really wild here. Guide of Souls into Assaultron to double up the energy, jump the guide right away, even with it eating a smallpox after. I don't feel bad with a 3/4 flying that's going to gain me some life and make me some energy down the line.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a very good start. It does leave you a little open for them to just rip another Pox, and you're kind of sent to the Shadow Realm, as they would say,
A little bit,
where you
yeah.
lose your creature and your only land on board. But
I was
there's not
certainly
really
lucky
much.
to dodge that, but no, yeah, just not hitting the lands for several turns after that meant that there wasn't a ton I could do if they did happen to find it. Which luckily not. I mean, they're playing on a low grip as well. They're just drawing one for one discard spells, which do have things to eat out of my hand, but oh, we see the Eternalize on the Timeless Dragon there. That's right. So I technically can't be pressuring with my guide for a little bit. Soul Ring was a great draw, though. I don't need to go land into land to cast my threats.
Yep.
And this was a small misplay on my end. Obviously, pretty cool. Synth Eradicator on attack is going to make 2 energy. If I stack it like that, I should be able to jump it. It's going to be bigger than the Timeless Dragon, and I sort of misread how it works and choose to decline the trigger, letting me hit the land drop, but not make the energy, so I can't buff my Eradicator, and that ends up getting eaten by the token. But still, I'm in a way, being a little bit more resilient. I'm setting up my mana, so any future threats that I do draw are going to be castable. And we rip an Elite Spellbinder here. This is, in game 1, mid game. That's where I want to see it. It's a flying threat. We double jump the Guide of Souls there, and it looks like there's really not a lot that could possibly be drawn. So,
Yeah, just being able to push that extra damage with the extra jump there was really what closed the door.
absolutely. And I end up running it back, no sideboarding. I just don't feel that this is a very bad matchup. Obviously, I keep a hand that is land or threat light. Smallpox can be a bit of a blowout, but I also have the potential for nuts openers like this with a guide and a soul ring. I decided to lead on the guide rather than the ring, so next turn I can just cast my soul ring into most likely Spellbinder. And we do see a pretty good start from Sam though. Soul ring into Maze Mind Tome is pretty consistent card advantage. They're not going to be just flipping one card, hoping for it not to be a land or a one for one.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised you kept this hand, to be honest. Seeing 3 red cards, no red source. Luckily, it panned out fairly well for you,
Yeah,
but
I
it is
I just
a
have
potentially
faith.
risk keep.
It is, but I think if that were a 4, that would be the best 4 I had access to, right? Land,
For sure.
Soul Ring, Guide, Spellbinder, and
Yeah,
I just had enough faith in the guide. I was just so excited to be even able to register them
yeah,
that I took a
that's
bit of a
fair.
gamble on it.
Yeah, I personally, I guess, just would be scared knowing they're playing a smallpox hand attack based deck to keep such a potentially fragile hand like that.
That's
But
true. If I did lead on Guide of Souls and my Soul Ring got thought seized or Inquisitioned, that would look really bad for me for sure.
you're right. But
But I am able to dodge it.
yeah, luckily. Yeah, then he's just trying to play the 1-for-1 game, and I think almost all your cards make out ahead on that
Yeah,
race, luckily for
absolutely.
you.
What I have left in hand at this point is things that are going to give me card advantage, even if they answer what's on board. I feel
Right.
pretty confident with how the rest of this game is going to go. Sanctifier was an interesting sideboard choice. I mean, obviously, a pretty good chunk of my best threats are red, but not all of them are, and I don't play out of the graveyard very much. And really funnily, I mean, I think we get to see it this game. If I happen to give an Inti, a Raptor, and a Sultron flying, then Sanctifier can't do anything against it.
Right.
And here's where we really get to see a payoff for getting so much energy, being able to get flying and trample and +1/+1 counters on our Sultron Dominator. Now that is a really difficult to answer threat.
Yeah, just being able to dump all that energy into making your board huge is super strong.
And I think that's kind of what it was missing in the 4-color build was the Guide of Souls and the Sultron, something to actually eat that energy that you build up so heavily some games. And at this
Yeah.
point, the game is pretty locked up. I do decide to let this Raptor rip anyways, because that's 4 more energy. That's another jump, and we get to exile the only flying blocker and token. This is going to go positive on energy as well. So with our 2 Guide of Souls, we can jump 2 of our threats, giving our entire board flying and, I mean, way over lethal.
Yeah.
And I think this was a bit of a rough draw beyond the opening hand for Sam. Also, just playing a bit of a brew that I think had a little bit of room for improvement. All right, then my third match, I played against Noah, that See the Truth deck that we looked at. Again, I see a Guide of Souls opener. I'm pretty excited to keep it. frankly.
Yeah, Gyarados holds on one, and then especially if you can follow it up with a Raptor or a Soltron on two,
Yeah,
it can just be incredibly strong. You
that
got
I
even more lucky here
yeah.
to rip into the Gyarados and be able to
Mhm.
fly immediately, but
Yeah, that was just a really nuts luck. I mean, that I felt like a modern player at that time. Like that must have been how exciting this deck was to play when the whole red white energy package was legal. At this point, yeah, Tune is still going to be positive on energy for me. I'm just sitting on mana and a lot of interaction. I'm not sure what I'm up against yet at this time, but I feel like I'm looking pretty far ahead. And we see that, these removal spells aren't the strongest here. They do play threats that need to get answered, but they're mostly built around a lot of card advantage. And Raptor lucks straight into the Sea of the Truth. We see the build around. And I tell him that he's goaded because that was sick.
yeah.
At this point, yeah, I'm realizing, okay, it looks like a deck with mostly a lot of cantrips, more of a Delver style deck. So I'm okay to spend my Galvanic Discharge on this Raptor. That banks me 2 energy and lets me jump the Raptor. They've got nothing on board. Theoretically, I do have lethal the next turn, and then they do pack it in. And boarding here was a bit tough. For game 2, I decided to run it back as is because I do think, Spell Pierce is playable. I think Prismatic Ending is playable, specifically against the Dreadhorde Arcanists, but I hadn't seen those yet at this time. So I decided to just run it back. I felt confident in having a good start, and then the hand I see is not dissimilar. It's Guide of Souls into Amped Raptor, but they have got both an answer to the Guide of Souls and then a Raptor into a Dreadhorde Arcanist. It's a pretty nuts turn 1 and 2. Then Arcanist gets to recast the bolt yet again, remove my guide, and I did sort of walk right into that one.
Yeah, his hand was, or his hand, I guess, yeah, is much more set up to be able to control what you're doing and still cantrip his way into, establishing value.
Yeah, I mean this is exactly how you want to play with one of these tempo style decks. It has threats, even though they're not the most efficient ever, and it's got answers and it's got card advantage. Like it takes a while here. There's a good amount of back and forth, but technically speaking, I'm already starting to get buried. This Dreadhorde Arcanist is going to continue to let them see more cards, potentially more interaction. They've got several threats on board. I wasn't too scared of just a Raptor and an Arcanist, but now also a Steel Cutter and a Planisphere, meaning any spell cast, like the free Heroes Hangout off of the Dreadhorde Arcanist, is going to put counters on that. It's going to put them closer to making another Monk token next turn. This was a cute interaction that I did think about in deck building. Both Synth Eradicator and a Sultron are artifact creatures that care about energy, so I did feel if I'm going in on one, I'd like to try both together. And this is a pretty huge threat. This Synth Eradicator with an extra trample counter on it, being able to grow it the next turn as well, making the energy to continue using a Sultron to scale it up every turn. Just
It's just a really nice synergy that you get to take advantage of here, where you're just getting to push all this extra free value for just little synergy like that.
yeah. But that is where I end up deciding to trim going into game 3. I think specifically Dreadhorde Arcanist is such a blowout for me. The double lightning bolt off of Arcanist can really change the tide of the game. I think that was where I lost it in game 2, so I decided to trim on those energy pieces that are also coincidentally kind of my weakest threats in favor of a little bit of interaction for Raptor and Dreadhorde. And my hand that I kept here was definitely considerably more medium, but I didn't want to mull all too low. And we had to deal with a Planisphere on turn 2. And I don't feel great about slamming a White Plume into this because if they have a Lightning Bolt, then that hero token's going to get to swing and steal the initiative right from under me. And obviously that's not changing anytime soon, but I do think Planisphere is worth answering. And as
Yeah,
is this Dreadhorde Arcanist.
yeah. This is one of those games where you just get to see how I mean, you answered it obviously, but where you could see how out of hand that Planisphere could get really quickly.
Yeah, certainly if I didn't answer it, I would be pretty buried. And obviously the Pendings had a great showing in this game. It just wasn't enough. I needed also more pressure to back them up that I just didn't feel I was having time to get down.
Yeah.
This was an interesting call, boarding in the Filigree Silex, the Ratchet Bomb type effect against my deck. And I don't think it's an unreasonable call. You know, most of my threats are I have strong threats on 1, 2, 3, and 4. They do have ways to buy enough time to tick the counters up to where they need them to be, potentially, but it's not going to hit my whole board once I get the chance to build it out. I mean, already in that turn, I got to draw White Plume and Inti. Filigree Silex will take 2 turns even to just answer the Inti, but then that's going to leave the White Plume.
Yeah, I do think we talked about this after, and we were both not confused, but a little hesitant on whether that's a correct sideboard
And I still couldn't
choice.
say for sure one way or the other, but you know what I was playing wasn't all that meta, and they saw threats
Yeah,
that needed to be answered, so they found a way to do it. I understand that. And here we
yeah,
go, drawing lands.
especially knowing how big some of your threats can get, it does make sense that, oh, knowing, hey, my lightning bolt doesn't kill this thing once it flies.
Right.
I need some other way to answer it.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, something like a double guided soul's draw. Sure, I would be blown out by a retro bomb effect.
right.
And it is in 2 turns gonna be also better than a lightning bolt at answering a 5/5 white bloom adventure.
Sure.
And here we get to see another See the Truth for the full 3 cards. I mean, it really was demonstrating it requires a lot of build around, but the pieces are there to get the full value off that card.
Yeah. Founding is so flexible, especially because it has read ahead. The fact you
Yeah,
can be able to just use it in so many different ways immediately when you need it to. It make
yeah, it's wildly strong for sure. And we got to see a good example there of the strength of Planisphere over just some other kind of prowess threat like a Sprite Dragon. There's so many different ways to have it trigger off third card drawn rather than just spellcast. They did it off of Faithless Looting. Obviously, See the Truth would do that. You can do that on both your turn and your opponent's. Yeah, this Planisphere getting up to
it very strong.
6
Yep,
6.
for sure.
And I had to pass the initiative over to Noah there. I'm starting to feel like I'm grasping at straws for anything I can do at this point. Both of
Yeah,
these
this
threats
is
are,
definitely showing how if they can stick that planisphere, it just gets out of hand so fast, and then
yeah,
you're facing down, a 7/7 or whatever, and it's
and a
not very
six
easy to deal with.
seven. Yeah,
Right.
switching over mid turn to then diversify what creatures had the counters on them. So one answer, or more realistically, one chump block can't fully save me.
Yeah.
And then another See the Truth cast from exile. What a wild deck.
Yeah, he did get very, I don't want to say lucky, but was able to chain a lot of his card advantage into each other with the See the Truths and stuff. And I
Yeah.
think that allowed him to just snowball and get so much card selection to be able to answer everything you were doing.
And then unfortunately, I had to buy in the 4th round. So that was the end of my run. It was a fun deck. I'm glad that we're still doing these events, still free to enter every week. Now they get to run a little bit longer, 4 rounds, maybe 5 rounds if more people join next week. So thank you all for watching. Thank you for joining me, Pizza.
Yes, sir.